allow public comment. And we did consult with Jessica Richmond Smith on this because this has become an issue across the state for any district in a remote mode such as ours. It actually, I thought would be simple became complicated. The reason for the complication is actually a compliment to Weston, that in multiple places in the policies and also in your bylaws, you ensure public comment. And Jessica, I think, was concerned, as you saw in that attorney-client privilege memo, that everything be done to still allow for public comment, but totally understanding the dilemma we have in terms of the mechanics of it in this environment. So my recommendation is that and it's laid out in these motions, that one, you would suspend public comment only for this meeting, the March 26th meeting. You would have to vote to do that. Then if you do that, you would vote to suspend the listed policy, and then it's listed pretty clearly in the information here. And then third, vote to authorize the superintendent by our next full board meeting, which is April 27th, by then to have developed a way for public comment. There are some ways to do that. I can come back to you with those later if you want. But this was the feeling that we'd honor public comment, be very explicit about it, but just say right now the mechanics of doing that don't exist till we plan it out. But first, you as a board need to take those three actions. You could take them as a unified vote, we've been advised, or as one-by-one vote. There may be some questions, discussion on this.
I'm good with everything that was presented. I mean, I understand the challenges and the reasons why we need to suspend for today, but definitely applaud the effort to have something in place for the next meeting. So I'm good with the three motions.
So can we read the three motions in at once?
Yes. Do you want me to do that?
Sure.
Move that the Weston Board of Education suspend the March 26, 2020 board meeting only to facilitate development of appropriate procedures for welcoming public comment in remote board meetings going forward. The following provisions in policy 1120, the Board of Education welcomes participation of interested organizations and individuals. Move further that the Weston Board of Education suspend the duration of the period in which the board continues to meet remotely as permitted by Executive Order 7B to enable implementation of appropriate procedures for welcoming public comment in remote board meetings. The following provision in Board Bylaw 9325A 1, 5 minutes may be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 20 minutes to each subject matter. Move further that the Weston Board of Education authorize the superintendent of schools to develop appropriate procedures for welcoming public comment in remote board meetings.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Hillary. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Victor's in favor.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Let's move to the approval of minutes. Have a motion?
Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the executive session and regular session minutes from February 24th, 2020.
Second?
Second.
Okay, I hear Hillary. Any discussion, comments? All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're going to skip public comment for this week. And before we move to new business, we'll hear from the Student Board of Education representatives. Graham, I think.
Hello.
Chelsea's here as well.
Oh, great.
Hello.
Good seeing Graham. Hey there.
So, first thing is so it's been a little different, obviously, having school this way, but it has not been as severe of a hindrance as some might have imagined, we thankfully had an orientation last Friday where all of our teachers had 10 minutes to try to test all their programs and stuff, get all the students on, and also so no students have any excuse on Monday for being late because, you know, there's no traffic, no classic excuses anymore. So the orientation was good. There was a lot of struggling there, but it was good that it happened on that day and not during an actual class day. And then on Monday, we started the actual classes, and we were all very ready for that. It was nice. And there are some benefits to it. Like, it's obviously not the most convenient mode of learning, but it's working very well. And all the students are putting in effort, which is even impressive among second semester seniors, which you wouldn't typically expect. But that's been nice to see. And no one can really disrupt the teacher because everyone's on mute except for the teacher. So that's a nice benefit. And the way it works is we have 4 30-minute periods a day with 15 minutes of passing time in between that. And then all the teachers give us supplementary work on top of that. And we, for the most part, use Google Meets, but some teachers do have a preference of using Canvas or Zoom, and that's generally just teacher to teacher, but it doesn't really seem to bother any students. It's all accepted.
So the administration is actually doing this cool thing where they're having like a lunch with the admin session, and each grade has a different day. And it's just this hour or so blocked out where you can have lunch and chat with the administration over Google Meets. And so Monday's the seniors, Tuesday the juniors, Wednesday the sophomores, Thursday is the freshmen, and on Friday there's actually the admin lunch meeting with the WHS staff, which is kind of cool. So that's exciting to see how involved our administration is with seeing our, feedback on this whole situation. Is obviously it's new for everyone. So that's going to be really exciting for us to do.
And in order to keep a sense of school spirit, we've come up with this, or we and Ms. Wolak have come up with this idea of a virtual Trojan Spirit Day. So every Friday, students are recommended, I guess that's not the correct word, but encouraged, that's the word, encouraged to wear Weston gear, and then they have to take photos of themselves wearing their Weston gear, and it gets posted on the Instagram stories if you get permission, obviously. So it's just a nice way to keep a sense of community when we can't really see each other in the hallways or see teachers in the hallways or do any spirit days of that sort.
And, continue, sorry.
That's all.
Okay. And our list of topics this week is pretty short as we're obviously out of school. But we wanted to end with an appreciation, a thank you to our administration and our teachers. I know that on Friday, on that orientation day, Graham and I's Gov class, we had an optional meeting later in the evening to test it out and do all these things. But like 30 and 40 kids joined from multiple classes, just because we love our teachers that much. And it was, it just really was showing how appreciative our student body is of all the work that our teachers are putting in, especially the AP teachers. We know that the AP tests are changing the format to be from 3 hours to now 45 minutes, and it's all very confusing. But we wanted to really, really strongly thank all of the staff and all that they're doing to help us have as normal of a second semester as we possibly could.
Yeah, and I'm sure from the logistical standpoint, you guys are to thank for a lot of the fact that this is working. So this is a completely insane time, but thank you guys for all you have done and making sure that we can continue to learn and that Chelsea and I are still represented here. And we're making the best out of the scenario. Working pretty well.
So thank you. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Is there, as obviously we are not, in your virtual classrooms day in and day out, but if there's some things that you think we can probably work on to make it easier, smoother for the students, what would they be? Is there anything that comes to mind now?
I really couldn't imagine anything. It's just, the trouble is just getting used to it, but thankfully we had that orientation and now we're a week into it and everyone seems to be getting the hang of it. So it's actually working very well for the circumstances. I personally and I don't consider myself much of a pessimist, but I would not have expected online school to go so well. I would have expected students to be reluctant to join online classes, but everyone's always there. People are engaged, but they're not obviously able to be rude. So it works very nicely.
I agree. I also think that with this whole thing, our major issues so far have just been technology issues, which are kind of have been clearing up as the week is coming to a close. And I just think the fact that, this is all so unprecedented and we don't know what's going to happen, having a very strict, structured schedule for students, at least for me, is really important. And it's really helpful because I enjoy school and I miss school. So even though it's a much shorter day and, it's not the typical discussion that I would have in my classes, it's still a way for me to meet with my teachers and meet with my peers and be engaged in a schedule it's just beyond helpful. I agree with Graham. I didn't think it was going to go as well as it did. And additionally, each day we receive material, different assignments that we're supposed to do. So it's not like we're just sitting there listening to the teacher talk. There's different interactive things or different activities, different worksheets that we can do to supplement the material that we're learning in class. Like in my English class, we had an online discussion about a book that we're reading, and we got to post comments and questions and respond to our peers' comments and questions, which was really cool because you could see it all updating live. So I really think that we're making the best out of this situation, and it's just a very well-running operation.
Great. That's great to hear. Questions from the board members?
Yeah, I have a question. How is the morale among your fellow classmates? How are they handling it? Are people upbeat? Are they sad? Are they nervous?
I think for seniors, it's a little sad. I know that because we obviously are missing out on second semester as a senior, which is always so fun. But we still have that in class communication, so it's a lot of that. Obviously, it's not the same, but there's not really anything we can do about that. And I think everyone, especially the seniors, kind of understand that, because it's not like it's just us. It's the entire community. It's everyone in other towns, other states, and we understand that it's kind of something that has to be done. So yes, it's disappointing and a little bit upsetting that we don't get to have as much experiences as we would want in our school. But at the same time, we understand that it's something we have to do, and you can just kind of roll with the punches.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think it's actually, if you were to tell kids 3 months ago that they'd have a 2-week vacation from school in the middle of the year, they'd probably be pretty excited. But everybody I know would be more than happy to go back to full school 7 hours a day. It's what we have is working, but it's obviously just the circumstances are difficult.
Thank you.
Of course.
Great, thank you. Thanks for your feedback. Thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for your upbeat spirit. And if you really missed the board meetings, you're welcome to stay on and listen to the rest of it. Thank you.
Tony, if I may, Graham and Chelsea inspired me. I popped my hat on when you said Western wear. I'll take it off to the end of the meeting just so nobody gets annoyed. But you inspired me, and you keep inspiring us. And this is recorded because it has to be, but you now have incredible excerpts to use for your public speaking. You two are remarkable.
Thank you so much. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to come on here in these circumstances.
So, if I may, as Tony knows, there's a key update here on the distance learning report. I know Graham and Chelsea are busy, but if you at least want to stay through that, it's up to you. Dr. Craw and Mr. Rizzo are going to do quite a thorough rundown for the board, and you might have some questions, comments after you hear what they've said from the student perspective. But that's up to you. That's early in the agenda yet, but up to you. So now I'm going to take my hat off just to on later. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
I can stay until 6:45, but after that I have some college decisions that I need to look at. So that'll be intense. But I would be happy to stay for that.
You're welcome to stay as long as you can. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's move to new business. We have retirements and resignations. Bill, do you want to go through that?
Yeah, I'll be quick. Obviously, all three of these are ones that are big losses for the district. Talented people, excuse me. Monica Edmonds retiring, effective March 31. We will have her stay on a bit during this transition, and Mike has worked that out with her, and it's if I dare say, financially, it's a good situation for the district to do this. Plus, it's critical work that she can help cover in our distance learning mode. But it was a time for her personal decision to retire. Still greatly enthusiastic about the work here. That is a critical role, so we have posted it, and we already have applications. 2 resignations. We've obviously spent time talking about Louis Bray's departure, but that's now an official resignation before you. I'll just go through the 2 and then there are motions for you to accept the 2 separately, if you don't mind. And then as you've learned, Craig Tunks is leaving us effective June 30th. So his new employer was very flexible with us in that regard to let him stay on through June 30th. That decision predated our distance learning situation. So we're fortunate that we're able to keep Craig until June 30th, and he and I will begin working on ideas for that transition, and then we'll give him space on that, which is natural, and I'll be sharing with the board after I work with cabinet and principals on some ideas on how we want to handle the leadership of digital learning and technology. But all 3 are incredible losses for the district, and we certainly probably have to be online now, find a way to celebrate Louis. We'll certainly find a way to celebrate Craig. I think probably it looks like most likely in a virtual way. I don't know if I put the 2 agenda items together. I'm sorry, you do have separate motions, I think, for both of those.
Yeah, let's go through. We have 3 motions, 1 retirement and 2 resignations. Let's go through them one at a time. Have a motion for the retirement.
Move that the Weston Board of Education acknowledge the retirement of Monica Edmond, Assistant Director, Pupil Personnel Services, effective March 31st, 2020.
Second.
Second.
Who is that seconding?
Oh, sorry, Ruby.
Okay, great. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Let's do the resignations. Do the first.
Move that the Weston Board of Education acknowledge the resignation of Louis Bray, Director of Human Resources and Internal Counsel, effective March 13th, 2020.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Melissa, I think that was you. Yep, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, can we have the last resignation?
Move that the Weston Board of Education acknowledge the resignation of Craig Tunks, Director of Digital Learning and Technology, effective June 30th, 2020.
Second?
Second, Gina.
Okay, Gina, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, we'll move to the next item. I guess Ken and Mike are on the line, Bill, right? They'll be going through an update on distance learning.
Yes. Hi.
Hello?
Hi, everyone. This is
Hi
Ken.
there.
Mike's on the line as well. So, wow, it's been a remarkable, past week of planning and then transitioning to our distance learning here in Weston. I really, just want to convey just how much work the teachers have been doing in this process, making this transition. We're so proud of the system, our teachers' professionalism, proud of our students in the way they've handled it, and certainly want to thank parents, for being supportive. I mean, particularly at the younger level where you need the parents' assistance in order to have the young ones receiving the the assignments and doing some of the work that we've asked. So just to, I think to frame this conversation, I'm going to do a rundown of the district and the buildings. I think we've already heard just a great report from Graham and Chelsea on the high school. So I'll focus more on the other schools. But then Mike will talk about special ed. And, then I guess we can go into whatever questions you have. So, all of this, really began with our first phase of having the extended learning opportunities where our teachers, planned these suggested activities. And that really gave us the time to work in a very purposeful way to come up with, I think, what's been a good plan to get us up and running this past Monday. And I mean, again, it's remarkable that in a week's time, you just think about, the work of the administrators just planning and creating the structures, communicating with their staff. And there's just some wonderful videos that we saw from each of the buildings, just highlighting, the students and getting them excited about this start. And then our, curriculum leaders working behind the scenes with our teachers to figure out, well, what do we do with the curriculum? I mean, how do we think about, identifying the most essential learning, because we can't, deliver all of the content in the same way in a digital environment. So how do we make choices? And so sort of like on a, in a first week, how would we start? How can we, identify what would make sense through a digital platform? Because for much of this, for our system, the baseline is the work is not in real time. It's posted for students. There's some exceptions we'll talk about as we go along. But when we made the decision to start this past Monday, all of our teachers and curriculum leaders were working at a feverish pace that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and into the weekend to to ensure that they could identify what's a good way to start. And we were giving the message, look, we're going to start slowly and get everybody oriented. And certainly that orientation at the high school was helpful because we added that live piece to that real-time piece. So with that, we're only in day 4. It feels like it's much longer than that, but it's day 4, and we do have some feedback, and I can recap what we're doing, and then we can get into the questions as we go along. So at Hurlbut, one of the big shifts, as I think many of you know, is our K-2 teachers haven't had the need to have a Google Classroom page. So what they have done, the very first thing was, okay, if we're going to be communicating with families, then we need a mode, a platform to do that with. And certainly it's available to us, but in their day-to-day, they hadn't had that need previously. So they've all learned, created their classroom pages, and that's how they're communicating now with families and posting learning to their page. I think Laura is she's providing us in a recent meeting feedback that that was a big lift for our teachers just to get that done in such a short period of time, but they embraced it. And we're just very proud and happy of how hard they're working at this. So we do know that families do appreciate when we are able to make some sort of personal connection with students. With a teacher maybe having a real-time kind of a touch base with the students, whether it's a morning meeting. We're currently not doing that. We started not in any real time, but we do recognize that potentially as our teachers get more and more acclimated, that there can be those opportunities where kindergarten class can briefly see their teacher or maybe there's a read aloud, or maybe there's something along the way. But we've given our teachers the ability to kind of make that transition step by step as we go along. But that is something, having that, because everyone is very much isolated right now, and that's a way we see, especially for the young ones, to have that that real connection, get that back with their teacher. At the WIS, I think more of the same. Although they did have their classroom pages set up, it is tricky in terms of some of the content, in terms of how do we deliver it. And for example, with math, we're now doing that. We're going to be rolling out. This week's been more transitional work with math, but using some Khan Academy for that. And again, one of the aspirations we have is potentially to have more and more of that, student teacher interaction. Right now, we said to teachers, and it's not something from the start that we were looking to do, but they're getting used to this kind of approach, and we'll be encouraging those kinds of interactions going forward. The middle school and the high school teachers have these office hours, and it's an opportunity for students to check in one-on-one with their teacher, email, or face-to-face, where they can provide support. Unlike the high school, the middle school students have a structured schedule that they can work through, or if they need more flexibility, they can adjust. Again, the middle school, like the other lower schools, it's asynchronous. There are engaging activities that are being posted. Students for all subjects, including our specials. There are things that they're being asked to do. A lot of it's been transitional, but there'll be more new kinds of learning that we'll add as we go along, because we're going to move forward as best we can with the curriculum. And I think at the high school, where you see that there's this live check-in, 4 half-hour classes, we've been able to do that at that level developmentally because of where the students are. But throughout the system, we really have said, for teachers in this transition to, get yourself up and running on the platform and be able to provide the assignments and video, not necessarily in real time, but you can post video of yourself so your students can see that. It's not in real time. And then really the real time, the live interactions come with special education and at the high school. So maybe Mike, you can just kind of pick up and talk about SPED. I know that was a big to get that up and running.
Sure, absolutely. So nice to see everybody. I just thanks Ken for that update, and I can't reiterate enough what Ken said about the amount of work that's been going on by our teachers and our staff to essentially move an entire delivery of instruction into a digital format. I mean, it's one of the heaviest lifts that I've ever seen in an educational setting, and the fact that it happened so quickly and so efficiently is really a tremendous compliment to our teachers, our administrators, and the entire team, because it simply could not have happened without them, without that work. So just from a special ed perspective, I'm going to kind of back up a little bit, and then I'll get more into the granular stuff. When immediately upon in schools, we worked on the extended learning opportunities and immediately began following the guidance coming out of the federal government and the state government. The Bureau of Special Ed at the state level, which the board received most recently, the most recent state guidance, which was, I believe, dated the 24th of March. I can tell you that that guidance from this federal level and the state level is changing very, very frequently, sometimes almost once or twice a day. in terms of how they're guiding schools through this time, because it's simply unprecedented. And in fact, the IDEA does not really contemplate what to do in a pandemic. So everybody is really working very hard to make good decisions and to follow the guidance from the state. And it really continues to evolve to the point where even this morning there was supposed to be a conference call statewide, and it was canceled due to technology issues, unfortunately. But everyone, there was hundreds of people signed up for that because everyone's trying to get the most recent and best information. Fortunately for Weston, I have to say I'm really proud of the team because, and I'll bring this back to the timeline in a minute, but what we were able to have in place by the time the state guidance came out on March 24th was exactly what the state guidance on March 24th asked us to do, and we didn't know about it ahead of time. It was tremendously well conceived, our plan, and the work the team did to do that was really impressive. I will say that so what we have done and what the guidance suggested really is that we need to provide continued educational opportunities for our special education students. The guidance from the state outlines several pieces of that. One is that it needs to have a continued communication with families and students. Two, that it needs to be individualized. It does give us leeway, and there is the understanding that the services that are provided within a school setting are going to be different than the services that are provided in a distance learning environment. So we have to look at what students are providing, and we have to figure out a way to the greatest extent possible with our best effort to provide that outside of a school setting. That is tremendously challenging. What each of our case managers, special ed teachers, related service providers did is go through every student's IEP and develop what we called a distance learning plan. And that distance learning plan outlined what services would be provided synchronously, what services would be provided, or what supports could be provided asynchronously, and communicated and really the time and the platforms that those services would be delivered through. Those were individual decisions. Those were looking at each student, looking at each set of services, and trying to figure out the best way to accomplish this to the best extent possible. This is not part, the state has been clear that this is not part of the PPT process. So we were fortunate that we did not have to convene 250 PPT meetings to do this. They did say that this is done outside of a PPT and these are not PPT decisions. So that was helpful to us. And I do have to say that I think the state has been, has had a very common sense approach to this for us. They have discouraged the convening of PPT meetings during this period of closure. There are exceptions, of course, and we've done some, and frankly, the ones we've done have gone very well. But what their message now, which I think is a good message, and I think it's the message that Ken and I and Bill and everybody across the district, our building administrators have been saying, is spend this time working on what is best for kids. Let's not get bogged down in convening meetings. Let's try to figure out how to provide these services as best as possible. And that's what we've been doing. So for every student, we've developed this distance learning plan. Case managers have reached out to parents, have reached out to students at developmentally appropriate levels. I think the description that Ken gave is very relevant to SPED as well, in terms of what can a high school special ed teacher do versus what can a Hurlbut special ed teacher do with their students. Regardless, what we have said from the beginning is that special ed planning, special ed work with students will be both synchronous and asynchronous. The question about what is specialized about specialized instruction, we have thought about that in Weston as having synchronous involvement at every level. It is that individual interaction or even small group interaction with the special ed teacher or the related service provider that is the special part of special education in this environment. So we're doing that as much as we can. A couple other main points here. I just want to reiterate, the timeline, because when that guidance came out on the 24th, kind of explaining what I just said, we had either in the hands of parents on that day or on the way to parents that day, a plan that outlined everything that the state was asking us to do. So that, again, that is a tremendous compliment to our teachers. The amount of work that they did in a short period of time is really impressive. I will also say that it's been a very close consultation with area districts. I'm on the phone or in this format, once or twice a week at least, with assistant superintendents in the area, looking at how other towns are addressing this, looking at the challenges across all of our environments. I will tell you the successes. We've had a lot of positive feedback from parents in terms of the interaction, in terms of being kids happy to see their teachers, coming up with creative ways to deliver services. The challenges are there as well. The challenge certainly is this is different. This is different for our families. This is not the same level of services that our students receive when they are physically in school. For our most complex learners, that is really challenging. The amount of structure and support that we can provide in a school setting, in the classroom, with highly trained people is significantly different than what can be done in the home. And that's a very real thing for our families. So we are struggling with that, and we're continuing to look at it to try and find better ways to do things. I mentioned the structure. The structure is an element of challenge for everybody. Again, our classrooms are highly structured environments. I can tell you my home is not, and I'm sure that many homes, around are having that struggle too. So those are some of the challenges. And I would just also, the continued effort of the teachers and work of the teachers are doing is really, really significant. So we need to make sure that we're supporting them throughout this process. Separately from the special ed piece, we've taken a similar approach to all of our 504 students. Our counselors have been reaching out to students on an individual basis, to those families, making sure supports are in place, making adjustments to plans as needed. In terms of working with students, I've seen a couple of really, really positive, strong emails about working with individuals. So that's continuing. We've also kept track of all of our outer district students, making sure that they have a program in place and that those students are receiving some instruction during this time. So that's what we've been doing. And just as Ken said, that the synchronous versus asynchronous varies developmentally across the levels. And we're really growing. People are doing things that they've never done before. They're open to the challenge. They're up for the challenge. They're enthusiastic about it, and they recognize, we all do, that it's a tremendous amount of work.
Great, thank you.
Tony, if I may just quickly, I asked Ken and Mike to really do the sweep on this. We are actively talking with the WTA for sure, because this is quite a significant challenge for our teachers. They've been incredibly supportive. We were on the phone today. It may come up a little later in one of the agenda items with Doug Pregman and the CES rep, Eric Fisher. They're committed to full support. They are making sure we hear what the concerns are. I'm very confident that, given our scale, the scale helps us here, smaller scale. We're hearing everything that was shared with us today. At the same time, we committed, Ken, Mike, and me, to be on the phone every week with Doug and Eric, and to make sure the teachers know that at least one path into several of the key administrators on this. We're all key as administrators, but we'll be listening every week to Doug and Eric just to try and keep things moving, because this is a challenge. As any district in the state that's moving into intensive distance learning as we are, it's intense for the families, but it's definitely intense for our staff. So I just wanted to make sure you know that we know there's struggles here. We're open to that, and we'll be frank about trying to address those.
Great. Questions from board members?
Hi guys, this is Ruby. First, I just want to start off with kind of a huge thank you and just applaud everyone in the district for the amount of time and work and effort. This was no small task for sure, and you guys got it up and running pretty seamlessly. So just a huge congratulations on that front. My question is with regards to Hurlbut. I know when we look at some of those early years, like pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade, it's more kind of level setting years, just to get, everyone enters the school system at kind of a different stage. And we use those years to kind of bring everyone up kind of to the same level. At what point, or how do you envision the accountability working in Hurlbut? Whether or not students will be able to turn stuff in, whether they're going to get the feedback, whether some students that are not identified as 504 or special ed, how are they still getting that individualized attention to kind of bring everyone up to the same level?
Great question, Ruby. And obviously we're still early in this process, but an initial measure that we have across the district is so that all of the teacher pages are being shared with the administrators, so there's good communication there and understanding. What are we able to provide, and where might we need to provide when we think about next year. How do we pick up in a normal environment? We have certainly, any students that are involved in intervention, receiving intervention or ELL services, we've very much like special ed, similar kind of approach, picking up those services soon. In terms of, if you're asking me, in terms of reading levels and how will we know, where students are, because we have done periodic check-ins and conferred with students as readers. We're still working on that. So across the district, assessing where students are, and at the higher levels, we're talking more about grading, feedback, and so forth. How are we doing that? That is still, when we look at our curriculum council, that was one of our questions that came up. So how we track and see how we're doing, because we know that's critically important. But we're still figuring that out in an online environment.
Okay, thank you.
Ruby,
If I could just, I'm sorry, Bill, go ahead.
Mike, go ahead.
Okay.
Mike.
I would just add, I think, we're 3-4 days into this now. I think we're going to be in a different situation in the fall in terms of where our kids are. I don't think a typical entering second grade student is going to be the same as that student was in the past. And I think that's going to be something that we're going to have to struggle with as a system. Because there's clearly been a part of first grade for that student that didn't happen in the way that it normally does. So, I think we're going to have to really, as Ken said, continue to work on it this year. But I think I think the effects of this are going to be, into next year, looking at, okay, what are our entering second graders or entering first graders look like? And then assessing that and adjusting again at that point.
Yeah,
Ruby,
Mike?
if I may, just quickly, Ken and Mike are on the point, but I still circle in regularly with the principals. So today, Laura and I were talking, and this exact issue came up, Ruby, as to how do we understand where our students are. The upside of this is we're all in this together across the entire state in the Northeast. So I actually am quite confident that where our students are will match up well elsewhere. The pacing here, the intensity of it, Laura is very sensitive to that. So indeed, going to any and all students, she's looking at ways to roll out some periodic interactions via video with families as to, how are you doing? So because we're not doing the formal assessments, we can't do that, either formative or summative, but at least through some of those conversations, other interactions, trying to get at what you're saying. And I don't want to borrow trouble right now, but Laura and I did talk today about what if we start having families say, gosh, maybe I need to do this year over again. How do we prepare to counsel families on that? An interesting upside, Laura thinks we might see some enrollment bump. People wanting to say, let's move into a community like Weston because of the environment and the setting. So there are all kinds of aspects of this for our early elementary years. But you can be assured Laura's on this, paying attention. I gave the principals a break tonight. I think I saw Lisa's hovering in this. We wanted them not to sort of focus on the board tonight. Maybe April, if we can manage their time, they could do some updates, or through curriculum committee, give you some updates on this question. But they're deeply in this exact discussion with us.
Great, perfect, thank you.
I thought what Mike said was incredibly important as it relates to this just not being, everyone realizing that this half a year is not a normal half a year. And as much as possible, we need to be cognizant of the fact that we're going to need it to, as good as we are, as good as we deliver in a distance learning environment, we will have to pick up the pieces at the end of the year, figure out where everyone is, and do some real work next year in a more normalized learning environment to make sure that we fill some of those gaps, because this is just not going to be perfect, right? And so I think, keeping really understanding what we've accomplished and where we just because of the fact that just the nature of what we're doing, some things we're not going to be able to accomplish, and we'll have to pick that up next year.
Yeah. I also want to echo Ruby's comments about just a true, just huge thank you to everybody on the team for what you guys have managed to put together for our students. And I fully recognize it's going to be an evolving process. As our staff learn better ways of doing things, they're going to be incorporating new things. So I'm full stop understand that. Mike, I know I'd emailed you earlier asking about our expelled students. If we have plans in place for taking care of those students during this time. And then the other question I have is, I understand at the middle school that we're asynchronous right now with our teaching, and the teachers are having hangout sessions for the kids to come on and join. One of Eli's teachers invited parents to join in on a session. And the most amazing thing was seeing the kids connecting with each other and chatting with each other and chatting with their teacher. And while I understand the challenges of synchronous education at that age, I do think encouraging our staff to make sure that the students are coming on for those little get-togethers, just from that social emotional standpoint. It was amazing to see all these little kids, and they're all chatting with each other, and they're chatting with the teacher, and truly able to kind of like keep their community going. The one caveat I will say is I did notice quite a few students who are doing this in their bedrooms. And I think just, having older teens, you don't do homework in your bedroom. That's where you go to sleep. If we have kids starting to use their bedrooms as your schoolrooms, and now we're going to have cameras on in your bedrooms, I just wonder if maybe some sort of communication out to parents about an appropriate space for their student to be able to be on camera when they're joining in on these types of get-togethers. Questions and comments, but yes, truly, guys, thank you.
I hate to interrupt this, but Chelsea and I do have to get going now. So thank you guys for having us.
Thank you so
And
much
we
for
hope
this
to see you all-
opportunity.
Yeah.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
rest of your night.
Bye.
Have
Good
a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gina, just very specifically about your question regarding students who are out of school for any kind of reason. We've been in touch with the counselors in those situations. I actually have a meeting scheduled with all of the tutors to familiarize them with Google Meet if they haven't been familiarized with that already. And we're making individual plans for students who are not in school, whether it be for disciplinary reasons, for health reasons. But it's in the works, and in many cases up and running with a few hitches. But it's on our radar, and we're working on it to make it as smooth as possible.
Thank you.
And Gina, to add, where we have most of the real time happening at the high school, Lisa and the administration there, they've been,
Very on top of it.
yeah, in terms of what is appropriate, what is not. I will say for parents, there are some suggestions for how to maintain privacy, even with video on, by, positioning yourself where, behind you is a wall as opposed to, an open room where people are walking through, or, I think those kinds of suggestions, continuing to push those out, will be helpful for families. And again, there's a classroom management piece we're all getting used to, right?
It's a learning curve that everybody is having to adjust to. I just think that gentle reminders and pointers about, because a lot of these kids in the middle school, the parents are like, go get your work done, and the kids pop on their computer, and I don't know that these parents realize that the kid's entire bedroom is on display on the camera. So it's just something that people need to be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, comments?
I had a question for Ken and Mike.
Yep.
I'm wondering if you could, if we go with the assumption that we're going to be in this learning mode for the next 12 weeks, can you give me your vision for what this is going to look like? I mean, is this, I would assume that this is sort of like phase one.
Mike, I'll start and you pick up, Mike.
Yeah. Look, I think yes. I think the vision is to make it as individualized as it can be, and provide, to the greatest extent possible, those educational opportunities for students. I'm talking specifically in this case about special ed and related services, but I think Ken would agree that as this evolves, we're going to be looking at more individualization, maybe some more synchronous kinds of interactions, at the various levels. That will be as teachers get more comfortable with the platforms, as students get more comfortable with the platforms, there's a lot of learning to take place here. Ultimately, I think this is going to force us to look at time differently as a school system.
Mm-hmm.
To think, I think it's going to, I wonder if we'll ever have to have a snow day again. I mean, you think about those things, and what are I keep looking for practices that are being developed now in light of these circumstances that will sustain when these circumstances go away. What are those things? What are those good practices? And I think we're finding some. So that's kind of where I see it going.
Yeah, and just to add, a great question, Hillary. That I think as we move along, and I think back to this past Wednesday, we had a curriculum council meeting. So all of our building and central office administrators, as well as our curriculum leaders, and there was a common theme. Right now, we're seeing a lot of collaboration amongst teachers. We'd like to, see that continue. But there was also a sentiment that across the buildings to have more of a sense of community. Can we build more of a sense of community and connections and interactions?
Mm-hmm.
That's the social emotional side.
Yeah.
That we and our counselors, they're working on this. They're thinking about this in conjunction with the rest of the faculty. How do we do that more? So I think phase one was the ELOs, just the suggested activities. Now this is phase two with teachers transitioning online with students. I don't think there's a high school around that's doing the level of interaction that we're doing right now with students with the live check-ins. So, if we could see more interactions at other levels, I think that's important for that building that sense of classroom community. And then I think from there, as Mike said, in the future, there may be some things we can look at differently next year, like snow days and other things, best practices that come of this, which could be exciting to maybe enhance what we're doing in a normal environment.
Yeah, if I may just, it's almost was a test. What did I just hear to that good question, Hillary? I think what's really important, and as I've said to people, I mean, we're struggling. We got things we're not doing as well as we could, but I think the word I've been using with the team is I'm awed. And given your question, we actually have a document that was put together, the handbook on distance learning. So we're not only doing this quickly, we've actually got a touchstone document to go to that you as a board can go to, we can go to, that lays out really A to Z, what is our vision here? And then through the curriculum council that's actively meeting, through the principals who actively sit with cabinet, me, we keep looking at those key touch points in that document. And yes, there's the academic side right now, but we're all understanding that we're in this incredibly difficult emotional moment. We're in a moment of social isolation. And actually, I think physical distancing should have been the phrase on this entire thing, as opposed to social distancing, because we have to have physical distance. We have to be as socially close as possible, but digitally. And so I think the staff is saying, how do we do that? Mm-hmm. So let me give a compliment to the WTA, who's, this is a challenge. Where are we next year with distance learning? we're proving now that you need a teacher for every classroom to do distance learning. Anyone who feared that distance learning was a way to get rid of the teaching force, just look at us this week. But I think the vision right now for this year is to keep the academic pace going, be realistic about that, but keep blending it with that interpersonal, that social emotional learning as best we can, and keep our teachers with us, because this is incredibly challenging for them. Many of them are parents and teachers right now, all in the same place. And so how do we keep supporting them through this? So I hope that answers your question. But again, what's really important to me is an actual document you can go look at that we update, as opposed to we're just doing it. And we've grounded this.
I will have to say, Bill, to your point about the teachers having to juggle their children while they're trying to teach. From my high schoolers, they've enjoyed it. Some of the teachers have brought their children on camera and like introduced their children to their classes, and it's really been a different sense of connection, even though there is that physical space. It's been, they've really kind of connected on a more personal level, because like the teachers have no choice but to like, their 4-year-old's crying, like go pick their 4-year-old up. It's been nice for the kids to kind of see their teachers as like moms and dads, and with the everyday pressures, and not just a teacher.
It's been pretty amazing to see how quickly the administration and the staff has got this up and running so quickly, and also, every day, I speak to Bill once a day, but every day it's clear that not only are people trying to keep it up and running, but innovate and improve as the days go on. So thank you for all your hard work.
Sorry, I just have one more question. Just obviously being at home for the past week and being online a lot, one of the things that I have seen on social media is just this huge increase in the sharing of ideas. And moms and dads are saying, well, what are you doing? And I'm doing this. And what side are you doing? Where can I get extra Spanish? And what templates are you using, which is just amazing. And I know lots of you at the administrative level are in communications with other districts. So Dr. McCursey, what's the forum that you're using to understand and kind of get that feedback of when Mike is speaking to someone in another district, or, Dan or Lisa are speaking to other principals in other districts? Where is that forum where we can talk about some of those ideas, and just some of those ideas, and maybe that we could incorporate in our district?
Well, it's daily. I guess the scale helps here a bit. For example, yesterday, and it wasn't out of the ordinary day, we had the curriculum council meeting, which dug into all of these issues. Mike sharing what he's hearing, Ken sharing what he's hearing, and because our SILs are online well beyond us, here's what Teacher College is suggesting. Go beyond that resource. The principals are constantly reaching out to what they can learn from other schools. But the Curriculum Council is a place that brings that together very actively. And again, it's in this same sort of meeting format as we're having now. Then also my meeting with the principals, Ken, Mike, Craig, because we keep it focused in that group, constantly sharing what we're hearing and learning from outside. Every day I'm on the phone with each of the cabinet members. What are you doing? What are we hearing? What are we learning? They're actually then filtering out with the SILs, the principals, on all kinds of ideas. So that idea, I've actually watched a veteran group through this, dare I say, get highly energized. I'm waiting for the crash, but I've watched, and I've even said to some of them, you all seem more energized. Yes, our teachers also exhausted, but they're energized too. And I think part of it is because they're a veteran group, and this is really suddenly, wow, let me tackle this. Let me really go after this. But it's a sharing across in many ways. So it isn't, we're far from isolated within Weston on this, if that's helpful, Ruby.
Okay.
Thank you. Bill, do you want to go into the implications for spring vacation? I think this is a good jumping off point for the next topic.
Yeah, this will get it. This will be a tricky discussion. And I have some draft motion language here if we end up having you as a board actually vote on this. But the question before us is, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, the question before us is whether or not we stay with the existing spring vacation that's currently scheduled, as you know, for April 13th through 17th for the 1920 school year. And we know what other districts are deciding literally this week, most other districts in the state. But what's critical is, and let's just be direct, Fairfield County is most affected right now by COVID-19. We have, while it's statewide closure, we've been the most kind of under pressure with this. We had to close earlier. So this is really more of a question of what are the districts around us doing? So I have that information when you want that as a board. But, the question is, do we stay with that full April break? We had talked about that in the last board meeting. Do we take a partial break? Do we take no break? I had sent to you this afternoon after the meeting with Doug and Eric, Doug's appeal to you as a board for the full break. I did talk with him about my sense of where parents are and where the other districts are. I was not, frankly, as superintendent, encouraging to Doug. I said, I hear you very much. Frankly, Doug, I hear you from the heart because, I'm a parent in Greenwich. I know what's going on at that place right now in my house. But I think right now a full break, I don't see that happening, but you as a board have to decide. But this is what's before us to talk about. The other thing I'm very committed to as superintendent, I hope the board is there, is that we are going to end on June 12th. The state has given us full flexibility to end when we want to. The 180 days are off the table, which right now, as we think about teacher morale, teacher burnout, really helps because they have a 187-day obligation in the contract. I hope we do not get into day counting because they will easily earn 187 days with you by that June 12th, whether or not you take that whole spring break or not. So what I'm trying to have us think about is if we don't, as a board, if you as a board don't take that full spring break, and I can give you how it compares to elsewhere in a second, to understand that there's some other days there that teachers will have earned. They will have put that time in. If we can really commit, unless there's some calamity out there, that we would commit to really finishing on June 12th and have that as something for all of us to point to. The only thing I'd mention that's in this mix of the vacation, because it's really people wanting a break, at the same time families, as we heard from the students, indeed, the structure helps here. So don't take our structure away by putting us on vacation. I can think that's probably a theme from families, but we may need a bit of a break, is that our teachers, we need to find some other times between now and June 12th that we're giving them time to prepare their lessons, to support each other, as opposed to full time on with the students. Ken's got some creative ideas. The Curriculum Council talked about that. We're learning what other districts are doing in that regard. So to be super clear in this big mouthful I just threw at you, you got a decision to make about point one, April vacation, a commitment, you don't have to vote on this, but a commitment, at least consensus, to stay with that June 12th as a goal, because that'll be a big signal to everybody that we know where we're headed. And in the interim, and we bring back ideas to you, what else are we doing to support our teachers? Is there some creative time we can use to support our teachers between now and June 12th? So those are those three kind of markers or key the only one really you have to make right now is that April vacation one. So let me stop, see what questions you have, comments, etc.
Questions from the board members?
So, hey everyone, it's Stephanie. I apologize that I tuned in late. I've had some connection issues, but I'm here. The question of spring break and end of school, I'm just going to weigh in here. I think the end of school, June 12, is a very important day on everyone's minds. I think everyone agrees. I mean, and I'm speaking from, following social media, hearing chitter chatter and understanding my own experience anecdotally as a parent. But that June 12 is certainly something everyone's looking forward to and not going a minute past. As far as the spring break goes, I think that the confusion is there's no question that the teachers are working more than just the 3 hours online that my students are experiencing. So my kids, my own children are experiencing, 3 hours in the morning online. And then, of course, behind the scenes, those teachers are preparing for another day and preparing and being in touch with students to help them with questions and their own at-home learning. So I understand that they're putting in full days. The notion of a spring break, though, it seems to me is going to conjure up a lot of stress among families, as you might have already said, Bill. A lot of stress around whether or not kids will have all of the academic time that they need in order to complete their year as they should. And I don't know how to get around that. You either extend the June 12 day or you don't do spring break, or as one of my colleagues suggested, we compromise and give them a long weekend in April instead of the full week. But my concern is that how do you get all that academic learning in? And maybe this is a question for Ken or Mike, when they're having shortened days and shortened year, and we lost 2 weeks at the beginning, or a week and a half anyway at the beginning of the pandemic. So anyway, I'll leave it there as a bunch of further questions to discuss. But you're hearing my leaning, obviously.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think this is one of those scenarios where we're going to have to kind of balance two needs. The need of our students to have access to the education, have structure in their days, the needs of our teachers to get rest, family time, prep time, and everything that they need. I also wanted to throw one thing out there is just when I was looking at the calendar and prepping for this meeting, we don't have a day off for Passover. And the day for Passover, traditional, closure would be on April 9th, and we're already closed on the 10th for Easter. So I'm just wondering, if that's something that, we could get around, the idea of a long weekend. We could give our families and our staff who may be observing, Passover off as well. I don't think we have to worry about disrupting people's work schedules by throwing, an unusual day off in there, but that's something I would definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, Gina, one of the things that you picked up there on the calendar is that we have Passover, Good Friday, and then rolling into a weekend. So if we use the religious holidays as to kind of center a long weekend around, that might be a good way of compromising, right?
Yeah. Bill, you mentioned that there were other opportunities in the calendar where the teachers would work. What are those days?
I'll let Ken explain that a bit. Again, I just sometimes my mouth runs. I'm not clear, but I think there's the April vacation decision. Then there's a commitment to June 12th. In between is us finding some ways to give teachers more time to prepare, get their work done, take that pressure off. So Ken, maybe you could speak to that. That's not a decision tonight, but we want you to let you know we're thinking about that. And part of that is if you don't vote for a full break and do a 2-day, for example, we're trying to signal there are other ways we're going to try and be supporting teachers who are feeling under some stress. But Ken, could you explain some of that early thinking on that so the board understands what I'm saying?
Sure. This is Ken. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So at our curriculum council meeting past Wednesday, we talked about what kind of structures can we put in place for teacher support. And one thought is periodically, and you can imagine early on this could be very helpful where we have some time where, a particular day, let's say it's a Friday, teachers are able to collaborate with each other and prepare and plan or get some tech support and not have to work with necessarily all the emails coming in or hangouts with students. Students can be continuing to work on assignments they have for example. But our teachers, it's a day or a set time where they would be working, planning, collaborating, dealing with, how they modifying the curriculum, much like they did leading up. I have seen some things around the area where a district has had, they'd go every 10 days they might do something like that. But again, keeping a structure in place for students at the same time, but the teachers, would not necessarily be going online at those times because they would be working together.
So just to follow up on that, what would be the relief that would help them? I mean, it might not be April break.
So, I think, April break is one way for them to, having a couple days to recharge, after this being a big, push to get going. But, either, a couple times where we could be able to have them, doing some planning and preparing together, on a particular day. That would be another kind of support that we talked about in Curriculum Council.
One example, this is Bill. Sorry, I'm jumping in. Another district that we know, for example, one of the districts that got out real early on distance learning, but actually we were out faster with actual direct contact between our staff and the students. I'm kind of proud of that. But just for example, tomorrow, they're highly structured, but tomorrow, district-wide, they're calling it a kind of a free day. So teachers are not giving new assignments, and they've said to the families as of late this afternoon, they've said to the families, tomorrow is a catch-up day. Yes, follow the same structure. You're not getting new assignments from your teachers, though. So it's a student day, it's active, but you can see immediately in that district what's happened is teachers, their preparations get spread out a bit. So students keep working, but the teachers get a little time. They're still working tomorrow, but they're little, so to speak, less on frontline demand with the students. Another district, and I'm not advocating this, but every 10th school day, they do that. So it's 9 days of new material rolling out every day. The 10th day, it's sort of a catch-up day. And the teachers are using that day, for planning, support. They're still fully on, but you would, get in the habit that families say, okay, this is a day we're just sort of catching up. And any of us who have elementary students, I think I was working this morning for you, but I was helping Arabella get started. I actually know what I'm doing. Man, was I challenged, but that's, you can see even in our house, that sort of catch-up day, there's plenty to do. You just follow that structure you were given. So that could be some easing that we've not brought in. Those are the kinds of ideas that we're thinking about. And to Ruby's point, we're stealing, begging, borrowing from other districts.
Yeah, I kind of feel, I agree with Gina in terms of, I think this is a time where we have to kind of listen to both sides, because I can, just to bring up Hurlbut again, this is a school that their teachers were not on Google Classroom. They were not using it with students. A lot of these teachers had never, been on it before. And so the fact that the entire school got up and running with Google Classroom, and then also providing lessons and video, might I add, it was a huge accomplishment. But these teachers also have families at home, some 2, 3, 4 children at home, and I think we need to be empathetic to that situation as well, just in terms of letting them catch their breath as well.
I totally agree. I completely agree, everyone. I think the teachers are to be commended. Extraordinary work that they've pulled together, and thanks to everybody who supported them as well. I'm concerned, I guess, about, and this is not to undermine the importance of the elementary and primary students and the learning that they're going through. The stakes for the high school students in particular, and Gina, maybe you can comment on this as well. I've got a 10th grader. You've got high schoolers, the stakes are pretty high for them. And I just don't know, and this is me not knowing, whether they're getting everything they're going to need by the end of this year.
Well,
And how to just, reassure us that and all the families that they are getting what they need so that they're prepared for their highly challenging academic year next year. Can someone fill, maybe Lisa, maybe you can help me out.
Yeah, but I'll tell you from a parent perspective, the College Board has essentially on a dime pivoted about the amount of curriculum that they expected the schools across the nation to deliver for AP classes. They basically have cut it off and said, you're only expected to learn like basically through the end of March. They are redoing all of the AP exams. They're not going to be the 3-hour multiple choice open answer things. It's like a 45-minute free response type of exam. So everything is different for those high stakes, tests that you're talking about. The bulk of the curriculum has already been delivered, and now it's basically trying to figure out how they're going to be tested on it. I think for these kids, they put a lot of personal effort into it. College Board has put up their own video classes to help these kids prep for it. So I think this is one where, students chose to take on that challenge, and, and if they have to keep putting in a little bit of extra work, I think it's fine. Those kids have a couple days off, and if that allows them to just focus on that test prep and not deal with their regular class rotation, that's a good thing right now, because it's a totally different ballgame than what anybody had going into this.
And I have to believe that as they enter their next year in the high school, for example, a 10th grader going into 11th or a junior becoming a senior, that globally there will be some lenience around what's expected of them in September, and that there will be perhaps a longer catch-up period in the early part of the fall to help them just be where they need to be.
If I may, we yesterday talked with the principals a lot about all kinds of things, and it was both all that coverage issues you're raising, each of you as board members, but also how it relates to the spring vacation. I guess I can put a recommendation on the table if you'd like. You tell me if you want to keep talking as a board. I can put, and it comes from listening to all of you, listening to parents. I can hold off a little bit, but I know where your administration is on this question. And if it would help you, it might help this very difficult discussion. The administration completely hears the teachers. We feel a couple-day break is essential. We are, as administration, worried about an entire week off because of a lot of the reasons you're bringing to the table. The structure pressure on families. The coverage will be different at the end of this year, no matter what. But we're pretty confident that the Weston student, and you heard our 2 student reps today, again, cold call, unprepared, they themselves said it. They're feeling that the work's moving along. And in many ways, they're almost getting more set up for their higher ed experience. But I think the administration, respecting fully where the teachers are in the WTA request, respect it greatly. We want to work with them on how to ease pressure. I think the sense right now is a couple-day break somewhere in that spring break week is needed. The full week just may take us off our rhythm, takes away some days, all the rest. We don't necessarily want to compare to other districts. We know right now in this immediate area, only 2 other districts have taken the full break. Right now, only 2 are plowing through fully. The rest are doing so far, and they're all deciding this week, but they're all doing some sort of mix of 2 or 3 days off, sometimes wrapping around that religious holiday weekend. They're all wrapping in some way around that religious holiday weekend. So, some picking up the Friday, Monday, some going as much as 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Monday, but very few are going for that full week. And the 2 right now that are out there going the full week are Bridgeport and Stratford, which are districts of a different ilk right now on this. And again, I hope I'm not stepping out too much, board. You can tell me that, but you keep talking, but I just want to let you know where your administration is. Again, with full respect to the teachers, please.
Yeah, Bill, I I actually support that. I think that coming up with a few days around the religious holidays, I think would be appropriate, and would I think satisfy both the staff who need a bit of a break, as well as the parents who feel that there's many of the students who can who really are benefiting from the structure that they're getting. I don't know how everyone else is, but I you
So
know.
just to clarify, that religious holiday is the 9th, Tony?
Well, we have the 10th off
Right.
already.
For Good Friday, yeah.
I feel like we should have the 9th off for Passover, but
Passover.
that's
Yeah.
my opinion. But
And then back to school on Monday. Oh, it's Easter Monday. Is that a holiday? No.
No.
We have historically not observed that. Some of the districts are wrapping to pick up that Monday. That would really be your decision, whether you want to do a 3, wrap that full weekend. But, Darienne's doing a Friday to Monday. Some others have picked up the Thursday. But it's,
Well, if it was an either or, how does the board feel about Thursday versus Monday or Thursday and Monday?
Well, if I may, this is Melissa. I think that, we when I look at the calendar, we had this 6 days, if you include Good Friday, off for this April vacation, and I'm hearing the teachers loud and clear in their
Right.
to this program and the massive amount of time that they've committed to this. And I've heard and I've seen with my own eyes how strong the program is. So to me, it makes sense if you had 6 days and the parents want the kids to keep up, you take 3 and you keep it an even break between the parents and the teachers.
Right.
If you want to do 3 in a row for the continuity, which I hear and appreciate and also understand in my own household, that maybe the idea would be to do the Thursday, Friday for the religious purposes, and then take a Friday, the following week or something, and give the teachers almost an extra break, another week. And if the parents want, we can roll, re up some of the PLO websites or something, so that if parents need structure on that Friday, then they can have it, but the teachers get a bit of a break.
Yeah. Could even do Thursday, Friday, Monday.
Yeah, that would be my sense would be give people a real solid, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, some 5 days of downtime. And then, do the run through to June 12th.
Well, yeah, I mean, whatever, I think I would leave whatever, kind of rest day or catch-up day between that and June 12th, really up to the administration.
That's right.
Yeah, depending on how they feel in terms of how the curriculum is being delivered. I mean.
And
Yeah.
Memorial Day weekend is, another good time, not for the teachers to work, but obviously to have another breather.
I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead of you as a board, and again, we didn't put motion language in here because we didn't want to be bold and anticipate, but I've roughed out some language I could read to you. Someone else from the board, a board member would have to read it, but I could read to you what I think I've heard, and then you could decide if that's what, maybe one of you can write it down. I could email it to you. Maybe let me just read it. It's not that long.
Sure, go ahead and read it, Bill.
Okay, and I'm just using language we've used before. I'll go slowly. Move that the Weston Board of Education modify the 2019-20 spring vacation from the currently scheduled days of April 13th through 17th, 2020 to a shortened spring vacation on April 9th, April 10th, and April 13th, 2020. Period. You could add, we recommend that the administration insist that the resulting 5-day weekend be completely free of WPS work requirements. I mean, that's last sentence is up to you. Some others I've seen that out there, but that last sentence is more, a sentiment, but the first long one is the technical one. If I questions or didn't hear it clearly, or obviously you can modify it however you want. It's your motion and your vote.
I had a question on it. When you say vacation from, you said the 13th through the 17th, but it really is the 10th is what it currently is.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's the Good Friday. Thank you. Thank you, Hillary. So it'd be the current motion would then read from April 10th, inclusive of the 17th.
Does anyone want to attempt to read back that motion?
Go ahead and email it to me, Bill.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the second sentence.
That's your call as a board.
I mean, I think that's something that the administration would probably need to decide on how you're going to give extra time, as you said. But
Yep.
If you could read that second sentence one more time.
Yep. It's a sentiment thing. I said we recommend that the administration strive to have the resulting 5-day weekend be completely free of WPS work requirements.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's fine. I'm fine with that. Sorry, I misheard. Everyone else fine? Well, we'll hear. Should we leave that in the motion, you guys, or not?
Yeah, why don't you do it?
I think it shows support for the teachers.
Yeah.
and
Agreed.
our
Agreed.
administrators.
I'm adding that last sentence in and I'll send it.
Okay.
You're right on email.
Yep. You can send it to whoever you like. If it's easier to send it to someone else, that's fine, but I'm waiting for it.
1 second, sorry. You're testing my typing ability.
I'll skip over the typos. I'll just read it correctly.
Okay. Or you can throw some in for fun. All right, almost ready.
What a surreal time.
Yes, very much.
Do we, I liked Melissa's idea. Do we want to structure the language that we reach out to WTA and ask them what would they prefer in terms of, do we take the 2 days of the 9th and the 10th now and then provide that extra third day maybe for another Friday?
We raised that today with Doug about if it's not the full. I would urge you to make your decision on this. I think, at this point, I would urge you to make the decision. I'm hitting send right now. I'm CCing Meredith, so she has it.
Okay.
I personally think we're going to be good with this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just sent it. Don't know if it got to you yet.
Yeah. No, hold on.
I have it. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead, Ruby.
Okay, move that the Weston Board of Education modify the 2019-2020 spring vacation from the currently scheduled days of April 10th through the 17th, 2020, to a shortened spring vacation on April 9th, April 10th, and April 13th. We recommend that administration strive to have the resulting 5-day weekend be completely free of WPS work requirements.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Next topic is calendar.
I think that's, am I muted? No, Ken, that's you, right, Ken?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, Ken, go ahead.
Well,
Great.
are we skipping school start and end times?
Oh, sorry, school start and end time, sorry.
All right, that falls back to me. Obviously, originally this March meeting was a chance for you as a board to talk about where we are on the issue. Ahead of this meeting, we had not committed to data gathering, if indeed we hadn't gone into the distance learning, but we had planned to have the public forum, which, as you know, we had to cancel. And we have a survey in the can to go out, but we've held that because we just, frankly, I didn't want to look like I had three heads by in the middle of distance learning, suddenly kicking out a survey on school start end time. So we just wanted to open the table up right now as administration to listen to you as a board talk about this. Obviously, we're in a very different place right now as to how we think about the next several months in a major change. I do know where the administration is on this, but we really just wanted to listen. We still have on the books for the April 27th meeting a vote on this, but just it's a chance for you as a board to talk about where we are on school start end time. I just would urge you to factor into your thinking our current situation, that we are really building how to do teaching and learning in a very different way, literally right now, which might influence what happens next year with time adjustments and all. But this is a chance for you all to talk and for us to listen. And if there are questions, we can speak to those.
Fellow board members, anybody have a view?
Oh, let's start. I think that is completely understandable, Bill. I think we have to focus on what really matters for the students and teachers and families right now, which is just giving them everything they need before the end of the year. That said, as I understand it, work continues beyond that. And it breaks my heart to think that this would just die in the water. But I would be open to thinking about it being delayed to January, for example. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I would. That said, if everything's up and running by, June and July, does summer give us an opportunity to do that heavy lifting around changing start and end time, or at least making a decision and taking some public voting, et cetera, or feedback, et cetera. So my thoughts are possibly delay to a January start of that kind of scheduling. If that is absurd, then I would say let's go back and see if we can work on this September. But I completely understand that we have a new set of priorities.
I think Taffy, I think that's very well said. My only concern with a mid-year switch to school start and end times would be childcare for our families of, working families, and also for our staff. Because sometimes these people, those families have to lock into contractual arrangements with childcare providers or, daycare centers or whatever. I just don't know the logistics of, my family, it would be easy to make that switch, but for our working families and our staff, I don't know that would be so easy. But maybe that's something, if we do put a survey out over the summer, we could ask to get feedback on. I think this change is gonna create those struggles that we've talked about adapting with a new time, and to put two of those in 1 year would be an even greater pressure. I don't know, Bill. I think we still need to hear from the public with like a very specific, this is what we're considering. Maybe that's some feedback to gather, but I would be concerned about those challenges.
Yeah, I think the priority now is delivering right in the distance learning platform. And then once we're out of that, it's going to be basically really going back, normalizing, catching up. I just think that adding this right now to our set of priorities is just not practical. Right?
I agree. Mike made a comment earlier, next September, it's going to already be a challenge in terms of reevaluating every student to see what level they're on. And then also struggling with, if students, if there is that opportunity and Bill mentioned earlier, having those conversations, if students do need to repeat. I just think next September, we are going to be faced with a host of problems not problems, but just issues that we have to tackle and pay attention to. I think adding this is just not practical right now.
Mhm.
And there's no real loss. I mean, the hard work that this committee has put together and the research they've compiled and all the thought on it, that doesn't go stale.
That's right. That's a good point, Melissa.
Maybe we're not moving as quickly as everyone would like, but I mean, the world threw us a curveball, and this information holds true in a year. And we
Agreed.
Yeah.
That's very true, because a lot of the information we've been working with this year is information that we pulled together 2 years ago. And then unfortunately there was, the tragic situation in Parkland where it threw school security as the utmost thing that needed everyone's attention to be dealt with. So, the information's valid. It's there when we're ready to work with it.
Yeah.
If I may, I think, again, I am a superintendent who's done this in now another district. So what helps here is you do have you have a plan that if you decided to just put it on hold and then pick it back up in the fall, it would pick up very neatly and cleanly. I mean, you're really at a point where that work can sit and much better, it's Greenwich. So much better than where Greenwich was. If Greenwich put this thing on hold now, the whole thing would have fallen apart. Whereas you can put this on hold, and I'm very confident what I'm saying. You can pick it right back up early in the fall, charge the administration with that. And as a few of the principals said to me yesterday, we may have some new creative ideas on how to deal with this issue in terms of blending in some distance learning. There are some statutory issues there, but we're going to be a whole new world. So there's some opportunities.
Yeah.
I think, you could sort of put on hold where you are, not worry that you've lost momentum, because it's very neat and clean what's next. Next is public forum. Next is a survey. We have very focused, definite approaches with the 8 o'clock, the 8:15. Very good work on the scheduling. All that can get picked right up. And then you might say, let's see, what did we learn in this distance learning piece that might give us a boost? But I also would urge you, try not to have us do this mid-year. Because you got to really plan 4, 5, 6 months just for all the scheduling, buses, all the rest. So you really want to have this be for a fall, but with a couple months.
Fair enough. I think that's fair. I love what I'm hearing here. I think it's all very reasonable, and sort of will give everybody a big sigh of relief, frankly. What I would suggest, though, is that when it does reemerge neatly, as you suggested, Bill, in the fall, that we not sort of find ourselves again next March or April still toggling with this decision, that the decision has been made earlier in the year, that all the ducks are in a row, and that if there's a change to be made, we're really ready to go in February, March, or April, as opposed to it sort of dragging on until April again and us being in April 2021, still kind of grappling with the decision. So that would be my only request, is that if we put it off for a year, we're ready well in advance of that September launch.
I totally endorse that point of view, Taffy.
Okay, great.
Okay. So I think we're pretty clear on that. All right.
So I want to move to. So let me just play back what I heard, because it's a really critical conversation.
What did the administration feel too, Bill? I'd love to hear. You said how they feel. What's going on with them?
You're landing exactly where they would have hoped, which is they very much respect the work. They respect the medical research. They respect where we are. You have 2 of your principals and others actively involved in this. Their view right now is if we had to shift school start end time and do that well, on top of trying to keep distance learning going, it just, something wouldn't work well. So they'd rather put it on hold, pick it up in the fall, and blend in things we've learned from the distance learning. If there may or may not be, but there could be a few things there that could help around the edges of the time crunch. So I think a lot of people will be relieved that we're still committed, ready to pick it up in the fall, but putting it on hold right now. And again, I'm confident it's very neat and clean. It's a neat and clean hold, neat and clean pickup.
Mhm. Great. Okay, Bill, do you want to move to calendar now?
You go, Ken. In other plain English, Ken, you're on.
Did we lose Ken?
Ken, we may have lost Ken.
Ken, are you muted?
I don't see him on the,
Yeah, I don't see him.
Yeah, he's up there.
list.
He's up there.
All right. Well, I'll start while he's coming back on. You have in front of you.
Oh, he's muted. Ken's muted. Yeah.
All right. Well, when he gets unmuted, he'll step in. What you have is, we have a board member on the committee. It's a calendar committee. This is the standard process. We're in March. You ready, Ken?
Yeah, sorry, it froze for a few minutes. Sorry about that. Okay, so thank you. This is an annual committee we put together of representative groups from our bargaining unit, administrative group. We have teachers on the committee, parents with the PTO, and so we generally, look at 3 calendars. We look at the current year's calendar, which I just discussed earlier tonight with the April vacation. We look at next year's approved calendar, if there's any minor tweaks that need to be made, but you already approved that calendar last year. And then we look to build out the 2021-22 calendar. So in your board packet, you have all 3 of those calendars. I will just highlight, the 2021 calendar, which is next year's calendar. Pretty much follows the same pattern that we have had, and you'll notice, there very similar structure, similar pattern. We didn't make any tweaks. Actually, there's a technical adjustment to that calendar. We had the date for Memorial Day was inaccurate. We just corrected that on that calendar, so that's correct now. But I thought I'd just give you a brief overview of the 2021-22 calendar. And remember, this is really just an initial pass, no decisions being made tonight. And typically, we come back the following month. If there are any suggestions, I certainly can bring the committee back together if necessary, or if the calendar looks good, the next meeting is when you could approve that. So looking at 2021-22, in August, it's a similar start with 3 teacher days at the beginning of the week, the 23rd, 24th, 25th, the 26th. Is the start of the student year, and so it's a shortened week, which I think many people like, a shorter first week for kids getting acclimated. And then in September, very unusual, we have the first day of Rosh Hashanah is backed up right against Labor Day, which I remember the last time I've seen that. And then you have Yom Kippur on the 16th of September. In October, you'll notice that we have a slight change here, where Columbus Day has been a day where students are off and teachers have a professional development day. One of the thoughts of the committee was to make that a full day for staff and students, but extend that October break for students to the 12th and have the professional day on the 12th. That allows families to visit colleges, have an extended time period for that, and also gives staff that October 11th. We had a day, where we were looking, we could play with and move around, and that was a day we thought to just propose. You may like it or not. We certainly talk about that. In November, we started the conferences on the 1st, You have election day on the 2nd, and then continue the conferences on the 3rd and the 4th. We have late arrivals and early dismissals interspersed in those conferences. And the reason we kind of shifted it to have it with the Monday broken up with the election day was just, coming off of Halloween, a late arrival just kind of seemed to make sense to the committee. And then, you have the Thanksgiving break. In December, we have an early release professional development on the 8th, which is in keeping with what we've done previously. We had a discussion of whether, 2 early dismissal EDs was enough. Should we move it to 3? The committee decided that 2, where we've had 1 in the first half of the year, 1 in the second half of the year, was working. So we didn't really change that. You have the 23rd, just before the winter break, the December break. Then going into January, Martin Luther King Day, the 27th is that second early release. And then looking at the February break there, the long weekend, one of the things the committee found that if we've looked at the trend data the past few years, the first couple of years where we gave that half day on the 9th, things worked out pretty well in terms of attendance rate, 10, 12%. I mean, you factor in flu season and other illnesses, and that was pretty typical. This past year, we really saw that that Wednesday early release double the absences on that day. So thinking whether or not that really was, the best use of a day, and whether you should make that a full day. Another option, could be if you wanted a 3rd day there for the break to extend it longer. Well, you have the Thursday, Friday, Monday, but if you wanted another day, you could take that October 12th, where we made that extended Columbus Day weekend, and put it there. But so I think if you look at this calendar, you're really looking at October and February as really where there were some changes. March is pretty much the same with the conferences and the.
Ken, I don't have the calendar in front of me. I'm looking at my own calendar here, but in February, you're suggesting the February break look like what then? Just Thursday?
Yeah, good. So the proposal here is that the break is the Thursday the 10th, Friday the 11th, and then you have President's Day on the 14th. So so what it eliminates is it makes the 9th a full day.
Sorry, I'm looking at the 2022.
21, 22. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have President's Day on the 21st. Am I looking at the wrong calendar? I'm looking at my Google Calendar, and it says President's Day on the 21st of February 2022.
Yeah, I don't have that here unless there's something wrong with this calendar, but we can check that. But the general concept is is a Thursday, Friday, wrapping around to the President's Day. We'll check that calendar. But what's in the packet, what I'm reading off of, is the.
Okay. Yes, it is the 21st. So you're just a week off in the calendar, just to note that.
Good. Well, thanks for. We'll catch that.
Okay. That was my conclusion. Thanks.
Thank you. But you see the concept. It's that half day that was eliminated there. So then in March, you have Professional Development Day on the 21st, which is a long weekend for families. The April break encompasses Good Friday. May, then we have Memorial Day, and then the last day for students is the 9th. Last day for staff is the 10th of June. So, if you look there, it's allowing the time at the end of June so that you can be out before a full week in June if you have a significant number of snow days. But, given that very last week of June is a 4-day week, you do have some flexibility at the end of the year on this calendar if you wanted to, look at some things. So basically, that's a proposal, and ask you to just share whatever feedback with us, and I can take it back to the committee.
Ken, just taking into your consideration the comments you made regarding the 21-22 calendar, you go away with the half day, the Wednesday leading into that Wednesday weekend. We currently have that half day on the 2021 calendar. So if the committee thought enough and wanted to go away with that half day in the following year, we wanted to take this opportunity to adjust the 2021 calendar. And my suggestion would be if you move half day to Friday, October 9th, because your current junior class is basically not been able to have any college visits this spring. So talk about a class that could really use some extra time in the fall to be able to go on college visits. Even if you could find a whole day somewhere, but even a half day on the whole day, get those kids out where they could get some schools in and do away with that problematic half day window.
I'm sorry, Gene. I don't know if it's your connection or mine, but you were breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, maybe whoever's not speaking, put their line on mute.
So, Gina, were you suggesting to try to find a way to make February 10th on next year's calendar a full day and try to extend the October? Was that what you were saying?
Yeah, that was the focus. I think the rationale that you presented for the 21-22 year was spot on. Why not take the opportunity for the 2021 calendar as well?
Yeah, I mean that's certainly possible. You would extend the year out because making an early release a full day.
I would be happy with just a half day on that Friday before, on the 9th. Friday, October 9th, just make that the half day instead of February the 10th.
Yeah, no, the only thing would be is for professional development purposes, and the committee did talk about this, to have an early release for professional development for staff, and then also have a PD on the 13th, a full day. That's a lot. We like to space those out so that periodically every month you're having some sort of opportunity for staff here that may be more than we would need for professional development, and all that's right in that that be that one weekend, that Friday, and Tuesday. While families are off.
I wasn't advocating adding the Tuesday.
Oh, you weren't? Okay, all right.
Friday or Tuesday. I just said Friday because if it was an early dismissal, you'd get the kids out on Friday and they would have time. But if you wanted to do 2 full days, do Monday, Tuesday. I was not advocating for both.
Got it. Okay. All right. I can raise that. So, are there other reactions or thoughts?
I guess we'll be revisiting this when?
The next month's board meeting.
Okay, and then we'll take a vote.
Correct. So is there any, I guess what would be helpful is your reaction to that, the 9th, or that, that Wednesday of that February break. I have the date, obviously, Kathy pointed out we have to fix that date, but that Wednesday before that February break, making that a full day. What reaction?
Ken, I think it's a good instinct. I have to say, I absolutely jumped on the bandwagon and thought, well, it's a half day, so we're going to have a 5-day week. I mean, it's a natural inclination in February. I think also when we used to have 2 breaks, a winter break and a spring break, they were both, we're sort of accustomed to having a week in February and a week in April, or 2 weeks in March, one of the two. And the fact that there was half a Wednesday is a temptation for people. I would take it out, or I would accept that that's a full day gone. I would take it out. I'm in favor of that. Anyone else?
Ken, just to confirm, this calendar was built for just 180 days, correct?
180 student days plus 7 teacher days.
Okay.
But how does everyone else feel about losing that half day Wednesday in February?
I think if the absentee rate is that high with having it a half day, we have to make the call, either make it a full day or make it a complete day off, because we're not effectively using our resources.
It's a waste.
Absentee rate that high.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We thought, with that, because, it was a lot of illness going around at that time this past year. But we had looked at all the days leading up to it, and it was all, 10, 12%. And then, boom, it spiked into the low 20s on that day. I will say, going back to the previous 2 years, we didn't see that. So, is it maybe a 1-year anomaly? I don't know, but that was concerning to us about that day. Was it as productive as it could be?
This is one of those moments where you wonder about virtual distance learning. We're going to have that half day off, but it's not off. I mean, this is where you sort of wonder where the new things we're learning will get injected into the calendar, not necessarily then, but other time.
That's an interesting observation. Yeah. I know Hillary was on the committee, and if there was anything else, Hillary, if I'm missing regarding this, but I think I've hopefully captured the sentiments of the group.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not saying anything because I was on the committee, so I wanted to hear what everybody else's reaction was.
Right.
All right, maybe we can move to the other, the financial update. Next agenda item.
Thank you.
Thanks.
How's everyone doing?
Hey, Phil.
Hey, good. All right, so this is a financial update as of for February. A lot has happened since this report was presented. So I'm just going to present the report as it was as of February. This is better. So as of February, in terms of our spend, we have spent approximately $32,797,186, which is approximately 62% of our budget. Sorry, I'm trying to avoid the feedback. We have encumbrances of roughly 36%, or $19 million. Anticipated year spend through the remainder of the year at $1.5 million, or roughly 3%. As of February, we did anticipate to have a deficit of $319,167, which is slightly down. We've chewed up a few line items. We've chewed up our the benefits line, which is primarily for health insurance, and that has to do with just increased enrollment or enrollment change since the budget was prepared last year. We're definitely continuing to monitor as a February legal expenditure, which, as we have been reported, has been completely, that line item has been over budget since, I believe, January. In terms of change and in terms of transfer to be approved, We had transfers totaling $131,275. There was one in excess of $5,000, and that's the transfer, which represents an increase in our projected excess cost reimbursement of $129,363. Any questions at this point?
Yeah,
Okay.
Phil,
Yep.
Phil, what do you estimate our overage to be now? It's 319 as February. Do you have an update now?
I'm always hesitant to give updates because this situation is very fluid, so it's difficult to tell. I will say that a lot of it has to do with if and when school reopens. So until I know for certain where things will be, it's difficult to say. But I am cautiously optimistic that we will not be in the negative territory. I know I did some quick analysis, and I think we'll be able to cover our out-of-district spread transportation overage that we had, combination of the excess cost reimbursement. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, because school they're not transporting to schools, we have a credit as well for non-transportation days. In addition to that, pending one other transfer, I think we should be able to cover transportation. So the only other, or we may have some other things to consider, but for right now, I'm being cautiously optimistic.
And then, Phil, how much of our unanticipated outplacement tuition is still available to be used?
For out of district?
Yes.
Hold on one second. I'm sorry, just a quick echo there. Gina?
Yeah, in our budget every year, we have an amount for unanticipated special education. How much of the amount that was budgeted for this year is still available to be applied?
All right, so in terms of what we have, as of February, we have roughly had $120,000 that was unspent. That was as of February, so that's why I was able to use, and some of that to offset, and for April to offset spread transportation.
Will you, by April finance, now I realize we may not have an answer about whether or not school is opening or not. Will you have some sort of reconciliation about like financial impacts of the closure, whether it's good for the budget, bad for the budget for this year?
Sure.
Will you be able to start getting some of that information to us at the next?
I do believe by that date, I think the next finance committee meeting is going to be on the 13th. I definitely think that I hope that we'll be in a better position then to lay out a few different scenarios to the committee.
Thank you.
Phil, this is Ruby. I just have a quick question. In this increase in excess cost reimbursement of $129,000, what reimbursement is the majority of that?
Well, the majority of that is going to be on your tuition because that's the main part of it.
Oh, it was tuition. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
So
okay.
it's all cost that's above. What is it? 3.5 times your per pupil. So it's a combination of different costs. What is it?
Yeah, 4.5 times, Phil. Yeah.
4.5 times. Sorry.
Okay.
So it's all the costs combined that's above that 4.5.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Phil, I think by the next finance committee meeting, as Gina says, if we can have, a good handle on the impact of the closure, but also probably getting to a point in the year where we're also going to need to see whether our overage is going to be coverable or whether we have to start talking to Board of Finance at all. So I think that would be a good place to really start having that discussion.
Sure. I think we'll be in a good place by then.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the financials themselves?
Nope.
I have one other question with regards to the enterprise fund.
Sure.
I asked this the last time we spoke. Are we committed to Chartwells to producing X? I don't know what the contract looks like. or to producing X amount of revenue for them? Are we going to be held liable to that number if we are?
We'll be liable not so much in terms of revenue, because the revenue is really for us, but I do believe that we are liable to them for their management and admin fees.
Okay. Which is going to eat from our current pile right now, correct?
It will eat into any revenues that we've made for the year, correct?
Yeah, okay.
On this note, Phil, what about like with the cleaning service or the contracts that, how are they affected by this?
So we have cleaning services through the end of the month. We do have a call with a company tomorrow where we're going to reevaluate things. Sorry. Again, everything, because of uncertainty with when we will reopen, it makes making decisions extremely difficult. But we're definitely committed to a FINICO through the end of March.
Okay, thank you.
Internal Services Fund, Phil?
Internal Services Fund.
Whoever's doing their dishes, can you mute your phone? Is that you, Mike?
It may be. I'm sorry. I thought I was muted.
Jump into the Internal Services Fund. So for the year ended, for the month ending February, period in February, we have spent roughly $302,000 from that fund, with a balance as of February of $1,235,026. And that is the end of the financial update. I know everyone is anxious to see where we'll end up, but it will to be continued in April.
Okay, can we have a motion?
Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the 8th fiscal year 20 financial update as provided by Mr. Cross.
Second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion passes. We'll go to the final item of the night.
Bill, do you want to lead off on this, or you want me to jump in?
Yeah.
I'll lead off with a couple things, and I know I think Tony and Melissa might have some thoughts on else. Let me make a couple points here. We coming out of the Board of Finance meeting, feels like many years ago, but just basically I think last week. It's clear to us that we needed to find additional reductions to even as difficult as this climate is for us as a district, that we needed to see if we could find additional reductions. We had some indication that if we could find some additional 300,000 or more, that might be well received by the Board of Finance. So we went to work on that. I think in this document that Phil has put together that I reviewed very carefully, edited, I think we make it very clear that we have a total of 7 suggested reductions. There is one repeat request, which we can speak to. That's item 6, the curriculum instruction SIL. We'll come to that in a second. But the big number here is health insurance. We'll talk a bit. Let me just do a little precursor on that. As you may know, we've been looking actively since a couple Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen meetings ago, have been actively looking with the town for more cost-effective options for us in health insurance. This savings here is, as it explains, is staying within the state plan, keeping our health coverage for all employees as is, but finding nearly a $200,000 reduction in the proposed budget, largely because, as Phil can explain, we'd anticipated a 10% increase, but we're actually at 6.5% increase. So it's quite a significant savings. The other options for health plans, high deductible, all the rest might, let me underscore the word, might provide bigger savings, but they would require us to go into a change of our health coverage for our employees. Given that most are covered within a collective bargaining agreement, we did consult with Jessica Richmond Smith, who tends to handle our negotiations. There's nothing in the current health costs that would trigger a reopener with our bargaining units. Thus, if for them to have any legitimate reason to listen to us to ask to change the health plan, we would have to have them stay economically flat, if not have some economic benefit. Some early analysis indicates that while typically districts with an HSA and a high deductible do offer 50% of the HSA, which is historically what Weston's provided, nobody goes higher than that. So we would not be advised by legal counsel for negotiation purposes to go higher than 50%. Initial analysis indicates we might have to go as high as 70, 80% contribution for employees to make them economically whole. So just from an economic standpoint, we might actually not save money by trying to dig into these other health plans. So that's the plus we have mechanics issues of whether it's too late for this coming year to try and shift out of the health plan. There's an April 1 deadline that may or may not have been waived. We don't know that yet. You can look how soon April 1's coming upon us. We would have to go into negotiations with all three bargaining units to make any change. Now, let me say what really is the big issue here, which I've shared with the chair and vice chair. Here we are, as we all know, in an international health crisis, one that's hitting this region particularly hard. I'm not sure why we would go to our employees and say, right now in the midst of this, we want to negotiate with you a change in your health coverage for saving more money when we already look to be saving on the budget close to $200,000. So I just want to, there are multiple issues here, but part of you as a board voting, if you will, to accept the recommendation on all of these items. We can talk about each of them in more detail. A front end issue is an understanding that you're comfortable with us not digging in for more health savings. Because to do that, and I'll now conclude with this point, it doesn't look economically wise for the district, near or long term, and you would put at risk a massive morale issue if right in this health crisis, we went to our employees and said, we want to now discuss with you changing your health plan.
So, Bill, this is Tony. Yeah, let me just jump in. I think that to make it even simpler, I had a conversation with the town leadership as well, and I said, in this environment, there's absolutely no way that we're going to open this issue with our employees. This may be something that in future years, it might be something that when we look into this, it might be something that might be feasible, but not in this environment. And I think that everyone accepted that. Just a couple of words on, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
A couple of words on the budget process. So it looks now like the state is really pushing the budget decision to town leadership, meaning that we will not have an ATVM and we will not have a referendum. What we will have, and I think it's still evolving, is that I think the town still wants to have an opportunity for public comment. They're trying to find a way on Saturday, April 25th, to have some form of public comment, probably remotely, but not sure yet exactly how that's going to be done. On the 30th of April, the Board of Finance will get together and determine whether there needs to be any further adjustments to the budget. And then on May 7th, the Board of Selectmen will instruct the Board of Finance to set the budget and set the mill rate. That's evolving a bit. And
sorry,
go ahead.
What did you say was the first date?
April 25th.
April what? 25?
Yeah.
Which is what?
Saturday.
No, I mean, what?
So public, basically, the town is going to find a way of having public comment on the budget.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, it probably will be some sort of remote format, maybe email, maybe a dial-in. Not sure exactly how that's going to be done.
Okay.
And then April 30th, the Board of Finance will get together to determine whether there be further modifications of the budget. And then May 7th, the Board of Selectmen will direct the Board of Finance to set the budget and the mill rate. What's not clear is whether the Board of Selectmen, it's still it's not clear in my mind, and I've asked the question whether the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance has the final say. It still seems like the Board of Finance has the final say, but it's not clear in my mind yet. But in any event, after the last meeting, we did have a few informal conversations with the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, where while there was a lot of members in this particular environment now, since the last Board of Finance meeting, since the first and the last one, had a bit more of a heavy hand in terms of wanted to see a zero budget in light of the financial difficulties that are afflicting the town, the nation, so forth. I think that what they did end up saying is that if we can find $300,000 in the budget, that probably will be fine for us. So there is a list. Phil, do you want to go through it, Mike, or Bill?
Sure, I can run through the list real quick.
Yeah, Phil, you just run through it. I think item 6 may require some elaboration for the board, and Mike and Ken and I can do that when we hit item number 6 on the list.
Sure.
Okay. All right, just going the list. I think we provided some detailed explanation or summary explanation of what these reductions are. The first line item has to do with reduction to health insurance. When we initially presented the budget, this assumed a 10% increase in our premium rates. In February, we got initial guidance from the state that the new rate will be 6.5%. This reduction of 192,537 reflects a reduction from 10 to that 6.5%. The second line item here has to do with personnel reduction. When the board voted back in January, there's a vote to reduce central office administration by 175 to be determined. As you guys know, Lois, the HR director, has left, and the difference here of 21,191 is the difference between the 175 and his proposed salary. Item 3 has to do with payroll liabilities related to item 2. Items 4 and 5, electricity and diesel, these have to do with reduced rates that we were able to secure. The electric rate is coming down, I think, from a 0.86 to a 7.566, I believe. And the town, we work in collaboration with the town for our diesel rate, and that was locked in also at a reduced rate. Dr. McCurdy and Ken will talk about items 6. Item 7 has to do with open source. We're attempting to utilize open source software for 2 line items for technology, and this is the related savings associated with that. Item 8, this is an adjustment that I missed. And this has to do with the elimination of the IT coordinator, which is a shared service with the police department. So we would lose the revenue associated with that position, which is $35,000. Initially, I had mentioned to you guys that we would wait for a later date to do some further analysis for Medicaid reimbursement. The trend that we have is that we're not going to be anywhere close to the $15,000 that we have budgeted. We're more in line to be in the $6,000 or so range. So this reduction here is to get us pretty much in line with that. So the combined reduction here is $328,220, which is roughly a 0.62% reduction from our 2.89 board approved budget. And this will get us to a 2.28 budget for FY21.
On item number 6, Ken, if you want to add in, I'll just be very quick here. We did, this is that targeted investment that's probably very well understood by the board at this point. It would be an add in terms of our time for the SILs around math. You do have unanimous feeling amongst your administrators, certainly principals and cabinet, that by not adding this, we're not subtracting. We still can get this work done next year, but this money will help us avoid having to make cuts in things that would be true subtractions, if I'm being clear. But Ken, if you can add to this a little bit, because I know this is a tough one. But go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I mean, this was looking to bolster support for teachers at the elementary level, and you know, we currently, the current model that has been in place has done a good job for us over the years. I mean, the 2017 report that we had evaluating the SIL structure reaffirmed that. You know, when you look at investments, we are still maintaining investments in math throughout the system. Recall the board put back in place some math enrichment at WISC. We have intervention work support at the middle school. Definitely want to maintain the intervention support. But we felt that this one was appropriate rather than potentially losing in other areas. This we can maintain where we are and support the math program with the other resources that we've included in this budget.
I had a question on that. I mean, even in light of what's going on now, I mean, do you want to revisit that?
Well, look, I mean, if I look at our investments and really prioritize the support in the intervention, tier 2 and 3 levels, we prioritize higher than this at this point. Even when I look at Carolyn in the current role, she's done a masterful job with supporting both science and math. I do think next year we will be highly effective in being able to support teachers. This was certainly something that could have augmented what we do, but I don't see it. I see us being able to still support the system in a very strong way. And so do the principals, by the way, Laura, Patty.
So given the recent resignation of the head of digital learning and technology, I'm curious to understand how you envision that hierarchy in that department and whether or not there is some additional cost saving. This would be more of a Bill question, but if you envision some additional cost savings there that, then we could apply back to this SIL position.
I mean, my sense right now is that we are, given our distance learning, the anticipation of not having the coordinator, that's a bigger loss by far than this. I mean, right now, if it's a very good question, but I don't see more savings coming our way there. We will be looking at how we have still that lead position, but that lead position now has to pick up a lot more work. And that was the role of the coordinator. Fortunately, that coordinator has stayed on with us through this period. If the coordinator had found, another opportunity, we would be really in a tough place in these several weeks without that. So I would not urge the board to think that there might be additional cost savings within the IT or digital learning area. I mean, because we're going to have somebody in that critical role. I think just our situation right now has shown us that if we're going to try and maximize some things for distance learning and going into next year, we're going to need somebody very, very good in that role. I just don't see a savings there. I think and the principals would tell you right now that this would be a nice to have, but it's an add. We can get this other work done, but anything right now to short more as to what we've done in technology or digital learning, which just would not be what we'd suggest doing at this point.
Bill, this is Melissa. I hear you on the SIL issue. I think at this point, the board, we've debated this, we've weighed in on it, and the changing economic times, the distance learning, everything that's happening. I think frankly, you guys are better placed than we are to make these types of determinations. I would just comment on your Ruby's question about the, you know, the replacement position related to technology. I think especially with the distance learning curriculum, but also with, you know, the budgetary concerns that we've been going through in the last, you know, months and years, you know, it might make sense to take a few steps back and really think comprehensively about how we want to structure technology in our curriculum, both, you know, from a financial standpoint, but from a, you know, effectiveness standpoint. And maybe that, you know, the present model and structure that we have may not be the most efficient or streamlined. And so, you know, I just would hope that before, you know, we go on in making replacements to some of these positions that have been vacated, that we take the opportunity to really have a thorough and thoughtful analysis of how to restructure ourselves to be, you know, efficient and hopefully, you know, maybe even more technologically advanced, but just not filling positions that are vacant. That would be my thought.
Yeah, no, well, let me thank you. Let me be clear. We are definitely reviewing and assessing it. It's natural that start with the administration for us to look at things, understand, and bring some ideas to the board about that. We definitely will be doing that. But right now, as of June 30th, we will be looking at nobody at the top of the district to handle the oversight and management of our IT function. Let me repeat that, as of June 30th, and we don't know where we're headed with distance learning, the COVID situation. This could stretch into next fall, you know, so we need to be doing some, and that's going to start Friday. Ken, you know, we just got hit with this, but Craig and I are going to assess. It's natural in any transition to not burden the person leaving with having to help you think through the replacement, but we do want to tap deeply Craig's thinking on this. That's going to start Friday. It would have started a couple weeks ago, but I think you understand why it didn't. And then I'm going to quickly be working with Ken, Mike, Phil, work with the principals on ways to think this through, and then be sharing ideas with the board. But we also have to keep an eye on the calendar, because literally as of June 30th, we will have no top person to manage and oversee our IT work. So for example, today, when we learned that Google Classroom was verging on falling apart across the nation, which would bring to a screeching halt what we're doing, we have an ace in the hole in Dr. Tunks, who understands and can find these things out fast. You know, we have lost him to a very high-powered school that embraced his digital learning and technology capacity. That's what people are hiring. I can tell you there was another major independent school in New York City chasing him. So, I mean, this is the level of talent that is just leaving us. So we have to be very cautious about what we do here. But we will assess, review, look at efficiencies, look at how to organize it, and we will bring that back to you as a board to grapple with and discuss. But I also got to keep an eye on the clock, because starting July 1, I have nobody in the shop to manage and oversee our IT function. And it's almost April 1.
No,
I'm sorry, Melissa, go ahead.
No, I was just going to follow up and say thank you for that. I do think that would be much appreciated. I'm sure you're already thinking about these ideas, Bill, but one of, you know, the thought I have too is, you know, whether the technology function, you know, in terms of like maintenance of IT functionality and digital curriculum might be bifurcated.
Yeah, we're going to look at all that. I mean, this isn't the agenda item right now. I mean, we're going to definitely look at it. But I guess what I'd say within this agenda item of budget savings, I would not urge you to go down the path that there could be significant savings here, because in the least, we cannot run this district without at least a strong IT person. Mm-hmm. And if you go out now to find a strong IT person, they're going to be in incredibly extra high demand. And so, you know, if you're just thinking, let me just be direct, and it's a little awkward because you got people on, you know, we're talking about people's roles here, but salary wise, I mean, just witness, we had 2 or 3 schools, independent schools, some of the best in the region, chasing Craig Tunks. Let's just kind of put the market in place, and that gives you a sense of what we'll be facing. So whether we split it, bifurcate it, all the rest, I would not think you're going to find dollar savings on that side of the house. We can look for efficiencies and staffing and all the rest, you know, but we will look at that. I just would urge you on this agenda item for this level of savings, I think we've presented to you what's the best way to approach it right now, but I wouldn't look to try and trade the CNI 41,000 for something you might save on the IT side of the house.
Yeah, Bill, I think that we've had some discussions on technology. This is probably requires a longer discussion about how one might organize technology, and maybe it's for next month's agenda, but certainly on top of mind on the board members. And as you can see, and also we are at a critical point because you're right, we are losing 2 senior people at the end of the year. So I think we just have to accelerate that discussion of what we think the right model is going forward.
I think Tony, at least from my perspective, there's a desire to go back into this world and talk about it again.
Yeah.
In detail, because I think some of the things that even I was recommending or I had points of view on 3 months ago, they could be different now, right? With Craig's departure. So I think I guess what I'm trying to say is I really need to understand that department before I can endorse these cuts.
Yeah, and I think
can I ask a question, Tony?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think the board is making a mistake to tie these reductions to the IT department.
Well, yeah, no, I don't want to tie these reductions to the IT department. I think that I personally would not want to tie these reductions to the IT department, but I do think that it does require at the board level some a real in-depth discussion about how we want to organize the IT department going forward. And I think that's a discussion that we as a board have to have. But
I'm agreeing fully with that. I mean, the normal pattern here would be for us as administration to do some digging, thinking, bring you a range of ideas, begin talking about that. And that's what we're starting. We had plans to start that 3 weeks ago at the point of Craig, announcing, but obviously with this situation, we had to put that on hold. So, I mean, literally tomorrow, Friday, Craig and I are starting that conversation. We'll learn more and begin to bring things forward. But again, this has now emerged as a sort of sub item within another agenda topic, which is this budget. If again, to get to the level of savings, if you're thinking there can be efficiencies gained out of your IT, I don't think you're going to find that. I think the restructuring conversation, that's a very healthy one, a very sensible one. Whenever you have such a major transition, both personnel and in our larger work. I mean, we're now we're a distance learning district, period, right now. That may carry over to the fall. So you're exactly right to ask for that discussion. I'm just asking you to separate it from this budget discussion, because you're not, if you're thinking you're going to get savings through restructuring, I don't see it. I don't see it, because actually you may find we're short on what we need if we're having to do more intensive distance learning going forward.
And I'm just the only way that I'm tying it to is just with back to Hillary's question around, given the circumstances of where we are now, do we still want to put the CIO position on the table? That's where my head is at.
Yeah, well, your principals, and Ken can speak to that, your principals unanimously are saying with Ken and the Sills, this is not the right ad at this point. If the town is seeking over 300,000 in reductions, if you don't take this reduction, we have to go find something that would truly be a cut. This is an ad. This is something brand new. The team is telling you, your lead educators are telling you, we can do well without this. But if we have to go find another reduction, we're going to be into something else that would be a true subtraction. That would give us less capacity at the school level or here in the central office. And part of what we've been doing here, we are immediately down a cabinet member trying to do all this work, with the potential that our IT coordinator could have left any single day during this process. Because once that position was removed, he wisely was looking for other positions. So I just want to be clear, if we can look for some other savings, but this is an ad. The principals, unanimous, are saying this is an ad you can take without undermining the educational program next year. Other cuts, we're not confident about that.
just had a question about timing. What is the timing on this, just given that there's going to be such a dramatic fallout? At what point do you have to essentially hand this over?
Hand which over?
These adjustments. I mean, can you wait?
What do you mean by dramatic fallout?
From this digital learning? I mean, we've already talked about how, this is going to affect the fall and the curriculum, and just there's going to be so many adjustments. So I'm just curious, like, how much time we have to reflect on this.
Well,
Listen, I think personally, I think we need to get those cuts voted on. That level of cuts. Listen, if down the road we find that we could cut somewhere else, I mean, we can always go back on. I mean, I think we need to have some level of cuts to go and transmit now, because the next time we get together is just too late.
Okay.
Between now and then, listen, if there's some better ideas or some better places, I mean, right now, given the level of cuts we have and those items on the list, and given the fact that the administration is pretty unanimous as where they want it to come from, I don't see an issue with it. I do think that technology is going to be, I don't think that technology is going to be led by dollars and cents. I think technology is first going to be led by the right organizational structure to deal with technology as infrastructure and technology as digital learning. And I think we have an opportunity to really sit there and talk about what the right structure is going to be. And it may or may not be more dollar efficient. But I think that we have to start from what is the right technology structure going forward, and how we actually, what do we need in terms of resources there, and then things will fall out of that. But that's a longer, more fulsome discussion we need to have as a board. So I actually personally am comfortable with these level of cuts now. If between now and May 7th that we see something that is more efficient or better, we can always go back and substitute, but I think we need to do something now to transmit.
If I may, and again, some of you may have been on the phone during the Board of Finance discussion last week. I think if the leadership of this town, because the structure, as I understood, per the governor's executive order, towns such as Weston now, and they're sorting it out, but it would appear, and I know Tony spoke to this earlier, but it would appear per the governor's executive order, the Board of Selectmen recommends a budget to the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance votes, and that looks to be, and that's what Tony's trying to clarify, looks to be then the budget. And so right now, the Board of Finance is saying to the Board of Ed, we need your final sense of reductions now. The tenor of the conversation in the meeting, and it's all public record, was some Board of Finance members looking to zero us out, which would be another 1.6, 1.7 million in cuts. This approach, you can see, gets us down to the lowest number that the town has seen from the Board of Ed in a long time, and does it in a way that, other than the curriculum instruction, again, that's an add. All of this is things that does not affect the classroom, the core work in any way. I think Phil has done excellent work here to bring you reductions that we think will meet the needs of the leadership of the Board of Finance, the leadership of the town. Say the Board of Ed now have made almost $2 million in reductions to get us to a number that's palatable in this very difficult climate. If you don't do this now, you conceivably will have Board of Finance members saying, zero them out. And then we are into an incredibly difficult place. And Tony, you were in that meeting. I think you can speak to some of this.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm worried about. I think we're good with this. But again, that gives us also the flexibility if we want to go back and substitute in the next 30 plus days, but at least gives us something proactively to go in there and say, okay, these are our cuts.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Tony.
Yeah.
I have a question. This is Victor. Sorry, I've been quite, was a little late in joining. My comment has nothing to do with the proposed numbers. It's not a numbers question, more of a process question, and maybe it's a question for you, Bill. Just in order for the board to understand how you're thinking about the role in technology, would it be fair to ask for a job spec along the way?
Yeah, and again, we're off agenda here. This is not a publicized agenda item, but
No,
I'll persist with you on this board. The normal plan between a superintendent and a board is that when you have any cabinet high-level administration turnover such as this, the administration goes to work on assessing what's the work, all the rest, comes to the board to talk about that, sort through what's the best approach. Depending on then the role, we would go out, and you would ultimately be brought to you one candidate to recommend for whatever that position. And so that's sort of the process to go from beginning to end. But yes, I would actively involve the board in the design, what we're thinking, the analysis, all the rest. So we'll do that. We also, in the midst of trying to run distance learning full speed and designing it, we also now have to get active in a search so that we're not going too far past June 30th without anyone in some type of seat at the top of the system. So even if you bifurcate it, you still got to go out and try and compete in the next 8 weeks for somebody who can run the IT side of the shop here. We're not going to have anybody, so I can tell you, looking at highly competitive districts, everybody in some way has a role such as we had. So there's only so many ways to do this. We'll analyze, we'll look at it. We're not going to rush anything. We'll involve the board, but I also know clearly what the independent schools are doing, what higher ed is doing, what competing districts are doing. So we will look at that very carefully. But I also, again, have to keep an eye on, and I'm repeating it, July 1 right now, 8 weeks away, I don't have anyone senior running the IT operation.
Well, I know what one agenda item for the next meeting is. All right. Can I have a motion?
Move that the Weston Board of Education recommend to reduce the FY21 operating budget by an additional $328,220 with items to include the list as in our record.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Tony, may I ask, will you be communicating this now in your role as chair, to the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen?
Yeah,
How are you going to proceed? Because I know there's some anxiousness there.
Yeah, I want to probably do it as as some sort of a adjusted transmittal of some sort. That's all. Just a letter of transmittal of the adjustments, and then the new amount.
Okay, so I can work on that with Phil. We have a pattern on that from past years as the board's voted adjustments, so we can do that. I think we can have a draft ready for you Monday if that makes sense.
Okay.
You can review that with the board as necessary.
Okay.
Right.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you. Anything else on your side, Bill? Super report.
I think to play with the word superintendent, I think you had a super report earlier in the evening from the students and from Mike and Ken and all the rest. It's been a very productive and lively board meeting. I don't need to extend it any. I think I just would urge you to move on to the rest of the items. I really appreciate how much you all digging into these issues in this very difficult time.
Yep.
And you're bringing us a lot of spirit. Let me just tell you that. The board support here is being felt and seen, so I really appreciate it.
Great. Gina, just on committees, Gina, do you want to actually go ahead and do a sort of a remote workshop to talk about budget process after the next finance committee meeting? Do you think we're ready for that?
Well, I think my honest answer is I would defer to Phil. I just don't know how much extra work he has, just because with so many contracts being up in the air with the closure,
Right.
I just don't know where he is with his work. I think from a board perspective, having a recap of our budget process and working collaboratively with Phil to be ready to rock and roll when we hit next fall.
Right.
Development of next year's budget is critical, but I would defer to Phil. I just, you heard
Okay.
the contract, the bus contract, the special
Sure.
education. Like, there's just so many things that have now been thrown into the equation from a work perspective for him. I would defer to him to choose when the time is right to start that.
Yep.
I think we can discuss it when we meet next. I think I always like to ask the time. I think we'll have a better sense, hopefully within the next 2 weeks or so. So we can make a decision then, if that's okay with everyone.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anything else in terms of committee reports or committee updates? I'm assuming that it looks like we're proceeding with meeting as committees. It seems like there's committee meetings are starting to show up on the schedule. So I'm assuming most, if not all, the committees are going to be meeting.
Yeah, and I would just say, because the meetings are virtual like this, and you can join them if you have a moment from the comfort of your home. I just really invite everyone to tune into the curriculum meeting, as it's on everyone's minds about how we're actually rolling out the academics this year, thanks to all the hard work of all the teachers and everyone, and Ken and Mike and everybody else. So just, let's join each other's meetings if we can.
Great. Yeah, no, there's nothing else. I want to thank everyone for joining this meeting, and we got a lot done. I'm constantly surprised with these meetings on how much we can actually get done remotely. But I think we got a chunk done tonight, and thank you, and thank the administration as well for all the hard work. How's anything else? Any other questions, comments?
I want to do a shout out to Tony, because Tony has just been sick as a dog and scared us all half to hell, and has never stopped working for a second. So thank you to you, Tony.
Well, thanks to everyone. I'm all better now. And feeling good.
And you as well, Bill. I know you've been sick too, so stay safe, everybody.
All right. Anything else? Do you have a motion to adjourn? Do you have a motion to
Yeah, I
adjourn?
promised you the W hat at the end. We got to have our spirit, Go W.
Bill, please convey from the entire board, again, this was a Himalayan task, and the teachers were right there, and they proved that it could be done literally overnight. So please, every chance you get, just let them know how appreciative the board is, and we're behind them 100%.
Will do.
Great. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Um,